I stood frozen in my own dining room, gripping my grandmother's apron as Madison's words echoed, "Go eat in the kitchen, old woman. I only want my family at this table." 20 years I'd welcomed this girl into my home, raised her children, saved her marriage. But tonight something snapped. Through the window, I saw my son Thomas's car pulling up. Madison didn't know he'd left work early. She didn't know what he'd been discovering. And she certainly didn't know about the papers in my pocket. 3 weeks before that horrible night, I was standing in my kitchen running my fingers over my mother's handwritten recipe cards. 30 years I'd hosted Thanksgiving dinner in this house, and this year would be no different. Or so I thought. The November sun streamed through my kitchen windows as I made lists, checked supplies, and planned seating arrangements. My dining room table could extend to seat 16, and we'd need every spot. There's something calming about tradition, about knowing exactly how things should be done. At 68, I'd learned that the secret to a perfect Thanksgiving wasn't just in the cooking. It was in the love you stirred into every dish. The doorbell rang at 9 that morning. Madison stood on my porch holding a steaming cup from that fancy coffee place downtown. My daughter-in-law of 20 years had never arrived this early for anything, let alone offered to help with Thanksgiving preparations. "Morning, Bobby," she said, her smile brighter than usual. "Thought you might need some caffeine before we tackle all this planning." I accepted the coffee, though something in her eagerness made me pause. Madison swept into my kitchen like she owned it, her designer boots clicking on my hardwood floors. She'd married my Thomas right out of college when she was still sweet and uncertain. Over the years, I'd watched her grow into herself, though lately, that growth seemed to have sharp edges. "I was thinking," Madison said, settling at my kitchen table, "we should do something special this year, make new traditions." I set down my coffee cup carefully. In my family, traditions weren't something you just changed on a whim. They were the threads that held generations together. "What did you have in mind?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Madison pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like a Pinterest board. "A gratitude jar. Everyone writes what they're thankful for, and we read them after dinner. I saw it on this lifestyle blog." The idea wasn't terrible, though I wondered why she suddenly cared about family gratitude. Madison had spent the last 5 Thanksgivings on her phone, barely participating in our conversations. "That could be nice," I agreed. "We could use my mother's old mason jars." "Perfect." Madison's enthusiasm seemed genuine. "Oh, and I was thinking about the seating. Maybe we should mix things up this year, not just family clustered together." Warning bells rang softly in my mind, but I couldn't place why. "We can discuss it. Who's confirmed so far?" As we went through the guest list, my younger son Jake called. I put him on speaker while I kneaded dough for rolls. "Mom, I might be coming alone." Jake's voice was heavy. "Sarah's lawyer is pushing for emergency custody. Says my work schedule makes me an unfit parent." My hands stilled in the dough. Jake was the most devoted father I knew, working construction to provide for his 2 kids while never missing a soccer game or school play. "That's ridiculous," I said. "You're a wonderful father." "Tell that to the judge. Sarah's claiming I'm unstable, that the kids aren't safe with me. Mom, I might lose them." Madison leaned forward, her interest sharp and sudden. "How much would a good lawyer cost Jake?" "More than I have. Maybe $50,000 for a decent defense." "I'll help," I said immediately. "I have savings." "Mom, no." "Family helps family," I interrupted. "We'll figure it out after Thanksgiving." After Jake hung up, Madison stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "You're so generous, Bobby. But at your age, shouldn't you be protecting your assets? What if you need care later?" "I'm healthy as a horse," I laughed. "Besides, what good is money if you can't help your children?" Madison reached across the table, covering my flour-dusted hand with hers. "You're right. I'm just worried about you. Actually, that reminds me. Robert's been helping Thomas and me with some financial planning. He mentioned that people your age should have things like power of attorney sorted out, just in case. I have a will, I said gently, pulling my hand back to continue kneading. Of course, but this is different. It's about making sure someone can help if you're ever unable to make decisions. God forbid you have a fall or something. Thomas and I could handle things temporarily. The suggestion made sense, though her timing felt odd. I'll think about it. You should. Robert could even write it up for us. He's been so helpful with our investments. That was news to me. Thomas had never mentioned working with a financial advisor. Before I could ask more, Madison glanced at her phone. Oh, I should run. Meeting Ruth for lunch. She stood, air-kissing my cheek. Think about what I said, okay? About the power of attorney. It's just smart planning. After she left, I found myself staring at the gratitude jar supplies she'd brought. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. In 20 years, Madison had never volunteered to help with Thanksgiving. Why start now? My best friend Ruth called an hour later. Bobby, was Madison meeting me for lunch today? That's what she said. Strange. I'm at the dentist in Phoenix. Have been all morning. Ruth paused. Actually, I've been meaning to tell you something. Last week I saw Madison at that new steakhouse downtown. She was with a man and Bobby. They looked very cozy. My stomach clenched. Maybe it was a work thing. At 8 at night, with her hand on his arm, when I walked past, she jumped like I'd caught her stealing. What did she say? That he was a financial advisor helping plan Thomas's Christmas surprise. But Bobby, the way they were sitting... I made an excuse to end the call, my mind spinning. Madison with another man, planning financial surprises. Something wasn't adding up. That evening I started my Thanksgiving shopping lists, but Madison's words kept echoing. Power of attorney, financial advisor, smart planning. Each phrase felt like a puzzle piece, but I couldn't see the picture they were forming. My kitchen felt different somehow, as if Madison's presence had left invisible fingerprints on everything. I found myself checking my mother's china, counting the silver, making sure everything was where it should be. Paranoid maybe, but I'd learned to trust my instincts. The phone rang again, Thomas this time. Hey, Mom. Madison said she helped with Thanksgiving planning today. She did. Very enthusiastic about it. Thomas sighed. That's good, I guess. She's been stressed lately. Work's been demanding. Everything okay with you two? Fine. Just busy. I've been putting in extra hours on a project. Something in his voice didn't ring true. My son, like his father before him, was a terrible liar. Thomas, if you need to talk. I'm good, Mom. Listen, Madison mentioned something about updating your legal documents. That's probably smart. We could use our guy Robert if you want. The way he said our guy Robert sounded rehearsed, like he was reading from a script. I'll handle my own affairs, thank you, I said more sharply than intended. Sure, of course, just trying to help. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as darkness fell outside. 30 years in this house, raising my boys, building a life after their father passed. I'd weathered storms before, but this felt different. This felt like termites in the foundation. Invisible damage happening where I couldn't see it. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Power of attorney, elder financial abuse, warning signs. The more I read, the colder I felt. Before bed, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through the house, checking every lock, every window. In my bedroom, I opened the safe where I kept important documents. Everything looked normal, but I photographed each page anyway. Paranoid maybe, but as my mother used to say, better safe than sorry. And something about Madison's sudden interest in my affairs felt anything but safe. That night, I dreamed of Thanksgiving dinners past. Thomas and Jake as boys fighting over drumsticks, my late husband Carl carving the turkey with precision laughter filling every corner of our home. But in the dream shadows crept along the walls, and Madison's gratitude jar was full of ashes instead of blessings. I woke with a certainty that chilled me. This Thanksgiving would change everything. The week before Thanksgiving arrived with unusual November warmth, but I felt winter in my bones. Every morning that week, I woke with the strange sensation that something was slipping away from me, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. Monday started with a call from my credit card company. Mrs. Henderson, we're calling about some unusual charges on your account. Did you authorize a purchase of $3,000 at Bergman's Jewelers yesterday? I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Absolutely not. I was at church yesterday morning and home all afternoon. We'll freeze the card immediately and send you a new one. Also, there's a charge for $800 at an electronics store from Saturday. My hands shook as I wrote down the information. After hanging up, I immediately called my bank. The news there was worse. Several small withdrawals from my savings, each just under the amount that would trigger an alert. Someone had been bleeding my account slowly, carefully. Madison arrived while I was still on the phone with the fraud department. She let herself in with the key I'd given her years ago, carrying grocery bags. Thought I'd drop off some supplies for Thursday, she called out cheerfully. Bobby, you okay? I ended the call, forcing my face into calmness. Fine, dear. Just some mix-up with the credit card. Her face showed perfect concern. Oh no, identity theft is terrible these days. This is exactly why Thomas and I use Robert for everything. He monitors all our accounts. There was that name again, Robert, the financial advisor who may or may not have been holding Madison's hand at dinner. I should make us some tea, Madison said, already moving toward my kettle. You look stressed. I'm fine, really. But she was already filling the kettle, pulling out my favorite chamomile tea. I watched her movements, noting how comfortable she seemed in my kitchen. How many times over the years had she made herself at home here? Emma's so excited about Thanksgiving, Madison said as she worked. She's been practicing what to write for the gratitude jar. Emma, my 16-year-old granddaughter. Sweet artistic Emma who'd inherited her father's honest eyes and gentle nature. How is she doing with school? I asked, accepting the tea Madison handed me. Oh, you know teenagers, drama every day. Actually, she mentioned something odd yesterday, said she saw you at the mall looking confused talking to yourself. I set down my teacup carefully. I wasn't at the mall yesterday. Madison's eyes widened. That's so strange. She was certain it was you? Maybe she needs glasses. Her laugh was light, but something flickered in her expression. The tea tasted slightly bitter. I'd drunk thousands of cups of chamomile, but this had an edge I didn't recognize. Probably just a new brand. Speaking of Emma, Madison continued, she mentioned you've been forgetting things lately, calling her by the wrong name. I called her Emily once, her friend's name, hardly dementia. Of course not. Madison's hand covered mine. I'm just worried. We all are, especially with Jake's situation being so stressful. The conversation continued, but I found myself struggling to focus. The afternoon sun seemed too bright, the kitchen too warm. By the time Madison left, I had a pounding headache and couldn't quite remember everything we'd discussed. Tuesday brought more confusion. I woke feeling drugged, though I'd only had one glass of wine with dinner. My morning routine took longer than usual. I kept losing track of what I'd already done. Had I taken my vitamins, fed the cat, the day blurred at the edges. Thomas stopped by that evening looking exhausted. Mom, we need to talk about Jake. I made coffee, real coffee, not tea, and we sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd bandaged his scraped knees, helped with homework, celebrated his college acceptance. Sarah's making things ugly, Thomas said. She's claiming Jake's unstable, that he's been drinking. even suggested he's violent. That's absolutely false. Jake's never raised a hand to anyone. I know, but she's building a case, and Mom... He hesitated. She's been asking questions about you too, about our family situation. What kind of questions? About your health, your finances, whether you're capable of being around the kids unsupervised. The room spun slightly. I gripped my coffee mug. Why would she ask that? I don't know. It's like she's got inside information or something. She knows things about our family that Jake would never tell her. That night I couldn't sleep. Every shadow looked like an intruder. Every noise sounded like footsteps. At 3 a.m, I gave up and went to my study. Something was happening to my family, and I needed to understand what. I started making lists. The strange charges. Madison's sudden helpfulness. The bitter tea. Emma claiming to see me places I hadn't been. Sarah's insider knowledge about our family. By dawn, a pattern was emerging, but it was too terrible to believe. Wednesday arrived with Jake calling in tears. Mom, the judge granted Sarah temporary emergency custody. I can't see my kids for Thanksgiving. That's impossible. On what grounds? She submitted evidence that I'm unstable. Photos of me at bars I've never been to. Witnesses saying I was drunk at work. Mom, someone's setting me up. Come over, I said immediately. We'll figure this out. But when Jake arrived, I was shocked at his appearance. My strong, capable son looked broken. His construction company uniform hung loose, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. I don't understand what's happening, he said. It's like Sarah knows every move I make before I make it. She even knew about your offer to help with legal fees. Said it proved I was financially irresponsible taking money from my elderly mother. Elderly. There was that word again used like a weapon. Jake, has Madison been in touch with Sarah? He looked surprised. Not that I know of. Why, just wondering. I made him lunch while thinking. The pieces were there, but I couldn't quite fit them together. My mind felt foggy, like thinking through cotton. That afternoon, while Jake napped on my couch exhausted from stress, I searched the house. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I found it. My tea canister, the one Madison always used, tucked behind others. I opened it and sniffed. Chamomile, but something else too. Something chemical. My hands trembled as I sealed some tea bags in a plastic bag. Then I went through Madison's usual spots in my house. The guest bathroom, she used the drawer where she kept spare clothes for impromptu visits. In her drawer under a sweater, I found a small bottle of pills. No label, just white tablets. I photographed them, then took one for testing. By evening, I felt clearer than I had in days. I'd skipped the tea Madison brought over that afternoon, pouring it out when she wasn't looking. The difference was stark. Without it, my mind sharpened, the fog lifted. Madison had noticed. You seem tense, Bobby. Are you feeling all right? Just worried about Jake. Poor thing. Sarah's being so cruel. You know, I heard she's been talking to some financial advisor about Jake's assets, trying to claim he's hiding money. Financial advisor. The phrase hit me like cold water. Really, who told you that? Madison's pause was microscopic, but I caught it. Oh, just gossip. You know how people talk? That night I called Ruth in Phoenix. Can you come back early? I asked. I need help. What's wrong? I can't explain on the phone, but something's happening and I need someone I trust. I'll drive back tomorrow. After hanging up, I sat in my dark living room pretending to doze when Madison let herself in to check on me. I heard her in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of tea preparation. Through slitted eyes, I watched her add something to the cup from a small vial. She approached with the tea and I made myself appear to wake groggily. Oh, Madison, you startled me. Just bringing you some tea before bed. You look exhausted. I accepted the cup, pretending to sip while she watched. We chatted about Thanksgiving preparations, and I let my words slur slightly, my eyes droop. "That's better," she murmured, taking the empty cup. "Sleep well, Bobby." After she left, I spit the tea I'd held in my mouth into a jar. Evidence. Then I went to my computer and started researching more seriously. Elder abuse, poisoning, guardianship fraud. What I found made my blood run cold. Thursday. 2 days before Thanksgiving, everything accelerated. My bank called. Someone had tried to add themselves to my accounts. The attempt failed only because I'd put a freeze on everything the day before. Thomas came by looking haggard. "Mom, I need to ask you something strange. Have you noticed money missing from your accounts?" My heart raced. "Why do you ask?" "Because money's missing from ours too. Madison says she doesn't know anything about it, but..." He ran his hands through his hair. "I found statements for an account I didn't know we had. There's over $100,000 in it." "Oh, Thomas." "She says it's for my Christmas surprise, that Robert's been helping her invest. But Mom, I called 3 Robert Stevenses in financial planning. None of them have ever heard of Madison." The fog was lifting for both of us. "Thomas, I need to show you something." I led him to my study where I'd assembled my evidence, the tea bags, the pills, photos of the fraudulent charges, bank statements showing the systematic theft. His face went white. "Mom, are you saying..." "I'm saying your wife has been poisoning me to make me seem senile. I'm saying she's stealing from both of us, and I'm saying she's somehow connected to Jake losing his kids." Thomas sank into a chair. "This can't be happening." "It is, and we need to stop her before Thanksgiving." "How if we confront her, she'll deny everything." "Then we don't confront her. We let her think she's winning." I squeezed his shoulder. "But first you need to know something else. I don't think Madison is who she says she is." That evening, Ruth arrived from Phoenix, and the 3 of us sat in my kitchen planning. Outside, Madison's car drove past, twice checking on us. Each time we pretended normalcy. Ruth and I looking at old photos, Thomas seeming to doze. "She's escalating," Ruth observed. "Whatever her endgame is, it's soon." "Thanksgiving," I said with certainty. "She's going to do something at Thanksgiving, in front of the whole family. Make me look incompetent, maybe even dangerous. Then swoop in as the concerned daughter-in-law." Thomas's phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "Where are you? Emma needs help with homework." "I should go," he said heavily. "Keep her from getting suspicious." After he left, Ruth helped me hide the evidence we'd gathered. Then we did something I never thought I'd do in my own home. We set traps. Cameras hidden in plants, recording devices in strategic locations, a safe in my bedroom closet for the real documents while leaving convincing fakes in my usual spot. "You sure about this?" Ruth asked. "She's been poisoning me, Ruth. Stealing from me. Destroying my family." I looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror. 68 years old, gray-haired, supposedly feeble. She thinks I'm just a weak old woman. Time to show her how wrong she is. That night I found Madison's ledger. She'd hidden it brilliantly, inside a cookbook she'd given me years ago, one I never used. The pages detailed everything. 2 years of planning. Systematic theft disguised as identity fraud. The pills. A mild sedative that mimicked dementia symptoms in cumulative doses. Names of accomplices, including the mysterious Robert, who was indeed her lover. But the worst part was the note about Jake S. agreed to custody deal, $30K on delivery, another $20K when B declared incompetent. Sarah hadn't turned on Jake randomly, she'd been bought. I photographed every page my hands steady despite my rage. Then I placed the ledger back exactly as I'd found it. Let Madison think her secrets were safe. Friday morning, the day before Thanksgiving, I woke feeling stronger than I had in weeks. No tea, no fog, no confusion. I was Bobby Henderson, mother of 2, grandmother of 3, survivor of more than this little girl could imagine. I had one more day to prepare, one more day to gather the final evidence, one more day before Madison expected to destroy me in front of my family. She had no idea what was coming. Friday morning dawned crisp and clear the day before Thanksgiving. I stood at my bedroom window watching Madison's car pull into my driveway at exactly 8:30 punctual as a prison guard. She'd been arriving at the same time every morning this week, and I'd finally understood why she needed to dose my morning tea before anyone else might visit. I shuffled to the door, letting my shoulders droop, adding a tremor to my hands that wasn't there. Method acting courtesy of survival instinct. "Morning, Bobby." Madison's voice rang false bright as she breezed past me. "How are we feeling today?" "We," as if my feelings were now communal property. "Tired," I mumbled, perfecting the confused elderly woman she wanted me to be. "Didn't sleep well." "Poor thing. Let me make you some tea." I followed her to the kitchen, noting how she'd already pulled out her special tin of chamomile before I'd even asked for any. While her back was turned at the stove, I watched her reflection in the microwave door. There, the small vial appearing from her pocket, the quick squeeze of drops into my cup, the practiced movement of someone who'd done this dozens of times. "Here you go," she said, pressing the poisoned warmth into my hands. "This will help." I pretended to sip, letting the liquid touch my lips while keeping them sealed. "Thank you, dear. You're always so thoughtful." Her smile was a predator's satisfaction. "Family takes care of family, right? Oh, I brought the final guest list for tomorrow. 23 people confirmed." 23 witnesses to whatever she had planned. "That's nice," I said vaguely, setting down the barely touched tea. "Madison, where did you put my reading glasses? I can't find them anywhere." "They're right there on the counter, Bobby." They weren't, of course. She'd been moving things all week, gaslighting me in small, cruel ways. Oh, yes." I reached for glasses that didn't exist, knocking over the tea in my fumbling. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." "It's okay." Madison soothed, already moving to clean up while I apologized profusely. "Accidents happen. Would you like me to make more?" No, I'll just have water." Disappointment flashed across her face before the concerned mask returned. She needed me dosed for whatever came next. "Actually," she said, "I wanted to discuss tomorrow's seating. I've made some changes." She pulled out a detailed chart. There was my name relegated to the far end of the table, practically in the kitchen. The children's section, she'd labeled it. "I thought you'd be more comfortable there," Madison explained. "Closer to the kitchen in case you need anything, and the kids just adore you." "But I always sit." "I know change is hard," she interrupted, patting my hand condescendingly. "But we need to think about what's best for everyone. Thomas agrees." Lies. My son would never agree to displacing me at my own table, but I nodded, playing the docile victim. "If you think it's best." "I do. Oh, and Bobby, I hate to bring this up, but there's been more fraud on your accounts. The bank called Thomas this morning." My blood chilled, but I kept my expression blank. "More? How awful." "Over $50,000 this time. The bank says it looks like someone with inside access. They're investigating." She leaned forward, concern painted thick on her features. "Have you given your information to anyone? Maybe forgotten you did?" The audacity of her sitting there pretending worry while stealing from me nearly broke my composure. But I'd come too far to falter now. "I don't think so," I said slowly. "Everything's been so fuzzy lately." Exactly what I told them. "Don't worry, Thomas and I are handling it. We've already started the paperwork to protect your assets." Paperwork, protection, pretty words for theft. After she left, I immediately called the number I'd memorized. Detective Martinez answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Henderson, how are you holding up?" "She just tried to dose me again. I have it on camera. Good. We're building a solid case. Are you sure you want to go through with tomorrow? She needs to show her hand in front of witnesses. Otherwise, she'll claim I'm making it all up, that I'm just a confused old woman. You're one of the strongest people I've met, Mrs. Henderson. Not many could play this role. After hanging up, I went to my hidden safe and pulled out Madison's ledger. I'd discovered more overnight. Coded entries that, once deciphered, revealed the full scope of her operation. This wasn't her first time. There were initials, dates, amounts. Ellen M., $150K. Dorothy P., $275K. Agnes L., $500K. I'd been researching those initials. Ellen Morrison died in a nursing home in California 2 years after her daughter-in-law took over her finances. Dorothy Price, currently in memory care in Arizona, family estranged. Agnes Lindstrom, deceased estate, mysteriously depleted before her grandchildren could inherit. Madison was a professional elder predator, and I was meant to be her biggest score yet. My phone rang, Thomas sounding frantic. Mom, I'm at the bank. Someone tried to transfer your entire savings to an offshore account. The bank stopped it, but barely. Come over, I said. Bring Emma if you can. There are things you both need to know. An hour later, my son and granddaughter sat in my living room, faces pale, as I showed them everything. The ledger, the test results showing sedatives in my tea, the bank records, the camera footage of Madison doctoring my drinks. Emma cried. Grandma, I helped her. She told me you were getting confused, asked me to track when you seemed worst. I made notes for her. I thought I was helping. Oh, sweetheart, she used you. That's what predators do. They make good people complicit in their schemes. Thomas's hand shook as he viewed the evidence. How long has this been going on? 2 years from what I can tell. Maybe longer. She's been patient building toward this moment. What moment? Tomorrow, Thanksgiving, when she plans to have me declared incompetent in front of the whole family. Look at this. I showed them the document I'd found hidden in Madison's car during her last visit. A petition for emergency guardianship already filled out, just waiting for signatures and witnesses to my supposed dementia. She's going to create some kind of scene, I explained. Make me look dangerous or completely senile. Then present this as the solution. With 23 family members there, she'll have plenty of witnesses. We have to stop her, Emma said fiercely. We will, but not by confronting her. She needs to reveal herself. I looked at my granddaughter. Sweetheart, I need you to do something difficult. Pretend you don't know any of this. Can you do that? Emma nodded, her father's determination shining through her tears. I'm an actress, Grandma. I can pretend anything. Good, because tomorrow we're all going to give the performances of our lives. Thomas left with Emma, both armed with their roles for tomorrow. Alone, I made more preparations. I contacted Jake, told him to come despite the custody situation, called Ruth to confirm her part, reached out to unexpected allies who'd agreed to attend. That evening, Madison returned for her final pre-Thanksgiving visit. This time she brought reinforcements. The mysterious Robert finally revealed. He was handsome in that shallow way con artists often are, with 2 white teeth and calculating eyes. Bobby, this is Robert Stevens, our financial advisor. He wanted to meet you before tomorrow. Mrs. Henderson, he said smoothly, shaking my hand while assessing me like a cut of meat. Madison's told me so much about you. I'll bet she has, I thought, noting the way his thumb traced Madison's wrist when he thought I wasn't looking. Robert's been invaluable, Madison gushed. He's helped us protect so many assets. He specializes in elder financial management. Elder. There was that word again, sharp as a blade. How nice, I murmured, then deliberately knocked over a lamp with my elbow. Oh, how clumsy of me. No worries, Robert said, but I caught the look between them. Satisfaction. The mark was deteriorating right on schedule. They stayed another hour, Madison fussing over me while Robert asked probing questions about my accounts, my will, my power of attorney. I gave them what they wanted. Confusion, vulnerability, the picture of an easy mark. "We should go," Madison finally said. "Big day tomorrow. Bobby remembered dinner's at 2:00. "I thought it was 4, I said, genuinely puzzled because dinner had always been at 4. "No, 2. I told you 3 times this week." She hadn't, but Robert nodded as if confirming her lie. "This is exactly what I was talking about," she murmured to him just loud enough for me to hear. After they left, I sat in my dark kitchen, rage burning cold in my chest. Tomorrow Madison thought she'd complete her con. Tomorrow she'd steal everything I'd worked for, everything I'd saved for my children and grandchildren. Tomorrow she'd learn what happened when you underestimated Bobby Henderson. I made one last phone call confirming the final piece of my plan. "Everything's set," the voice on the other end assured me. "She won't see it coming." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." "My pleasure, Mrs. Henderson. It's time someone stopped her." I hung up and went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I lay in the dark, thinking of all the women like me, the ones Madison had already destroyed, the ones she planned to destroy after me. Ellen, Dorothy, Agnes, and who knew how many others. Tomorrow it ended. Tomorrow the hunter would become the hunted. And I could hardly wait. Thanksgiving arrived with deceptive beauty. Golden sunlight streaming through bare branches, the air crisp with promise. I woke at 5, my mind sharp as winter ice. No tea-induced fog today. Today I needed every faculty intact. By 6, I was in my kitchen beginning preparations for what might be my last Thanksgiving in this house, one way or another. The turkey went into the oven first, a 24-pound bird that would feed everyone with leftovers to spare. As I worked, I thought of all the Thanksgivings before when life was simpler, when the people at my table could be trusted. Madison arrived at 7 earlier than expected. She let herself in with her key, finding me in the kitchen surrounded by the organized chaos of holiday cooking. "Bobby, you're up early." Her surprise seemed genuine. "And cooking already? I thought we agreed I'd handle the turkey." We'd agreed to no such thing, but I played along. "Oh, did we? I'm sorry, dear. I woke up and just started cooking out of habit, I suppose." Her eyes glittered with satisfaction. "No harm done. But why don't you let me take over? You could rest before everyone arrives." "That might be nice," I agreed, untying my apron with deliberate slowness. "I do feel a bit confused this morning." "Of course you do. Here, let me make you some tea." I watched her prepare the dose, no longer bothering to hide her actions. Why would she? In her mind, I was too far gone to notice or remember. The arrogance of it sparked fresh anger, but I kept my expression vacant. "Actually," I said as she handed me the cup, "I think I'll have coffee instead. Tea's been upsetting my stomach." Frustration flashed across her features. "Coffee's not good for you, Bobby. The tea helps with your clarity." "Does it?" I set the cup down untouched. "I can't seem to remember anything lately anyway." She tried twice more to get me to drink something doctored, but I evaded each time with elderly confusion that masked strategic thinking. By 9:00, she was visibly agitated. "Robert's coming early to help set up," she announced. "He's so thoughtful that way." "How nice. Will his wife be joining us?" Madison's laugh was sharp. "He's not married, Bobby. I've told you that." Had she, I doubted it. But I nodded vaguely, wandering toward the dining room where she'd already rearranged everything. My grandmother's china was laid out, but several pieces were missing. Valuable pieces I'd noticed Madison admiring over the years. "Where's the gravy boat?" I asked. "The silver one." "In the kitchen being polished. Don't worry about details, Bobby. That's why I'm here." To steal them, more likely. I made a mental note to check the silver count after this was over. By noon, the house filled with the sense of Thanksgiving. Turkey, sage, cinnamon, hope, and betrayal all mingling in the warm air. Family began arriving in clusters. Jake first looking haggard but determined. He hugged me tight, whispering, "I'm ready, Mom." Ruth came next with her husband Paul, then Thomas and Emma. My granddaughter played her part perfectly, giving Madison a bright smile while helping in the kitchen. Thomas avoided his wife, claiming last-minute work calls that I knew were coordination with Detective Martinez. Madison's parents arrived at 1, her mother Gloria, criticizing everything from the temperature to the table settings. I'd never liked Gloria, but today I wondered how much she knew about her daughter's activities. Madison's father Harold barely spoke already, nursing a beer. "Bobby forgot dinner was at 2, Madison announced to her mother. "I found her cooking at dawn, completely mixed up about the time." "Dementia is so tragic," Gloria said loud enough for others to hear. "My aunt had it. Went downhill fast once it started." The seed planted, Madison moved on to other relatives, each interaction carefully crafted to highlight my supposed decline. I played into it, calling cousins by wrong names, appearing to forget why we were gathered even once, asking my deceased husband if he wanted more coffee. The performance hurt. Each feigned mistake felt like betraying myself, but I held on to the bigger picture. Let them think me weak. Let them pity me. Soon enough, they'd see the truth. Robert arrived at 1:30 carrying flowers and wine, playing the gracious guest. But I saw how his eyes cataloged everything, the art, the antiques, the visible signs of a life well lived that he planned to strip away. "Mrs. Henderson," he greeted warmly, "you look lovely today." "Thank you, Roger," I said, deliberately mangling his name. "Robert," Madison corrected quickly. "His name is Robert Bobby." "Oh, yes, Robert." I smiled vacantly at him. "Are you staying for dinner?" The look Madison shot him was triumphant. Everything was going according to plan. At 1:45, an unexpected guest arrived. Sarah Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife walked in like she owned the place. Jake went rigid, but I touched his arm in warning. "Sarah, dear," I greeted her. "How nice of you to come." "Madison invited me," she said, not meeting Jake's eyes. "Thought it would be good to keep family traditions alive for the kids' sake." The children weren't with her, of course. This was about something else entirely. Madison swooped over, air-kissing Sarah like an old friend. The performance was enlightening. Clearly, they'd grown closer than anyone realized. When Madison guided Sarah to a seat far from Jake, but with a clear view of me, the strategy became obvious. Sarah was another witness to my deterioration. "Places, everyone," Madison called out at 2 sharp. "Dinner is served." The family filed into the dining room, and I saw the trap complete itself. My seat pushed to the far end, nearly in the kitchen doorway. A child's plastic cup at my place instead of crystal. Madison at the other end in my traditional spot, presiding like the lady of the house. I stood frozen, genuinely shocked by the blatantness of it. "Bobby," Madison's voice dripped false concern. "Is something wrong?" Everyone was watching. 23 pairs of eyes waiting to see what the confused old woman would do. I gripped my grandmother's apron, the same one I'd worn for 30 Thanksgivings. This is my seat. I always sit. We discussed this. Remember, you're closer to the kitchen here. It's easier for you." Madison's tone was patient, as if speaking to a child. "But I'm the hostess. This is my house." "Of course it is," Madison soothed. "But hosting is exhausting at your age. Let me handle things this year." "My age. Your age." The words were weapons, each one designed to diminish me in front of my family. I saw pity in some faces, discomfort in others. Emma's eyes filled with tears she couldn't shed yet. Thomas gripped his water glass so tight I feared it would shatter. Jake looked murderous. This was the moment. the fulcrum on which everything balanced. "I want my seat," I said more firmly. Madison's mask slipped slightly. "Bobby, please don't make a scene. Not today." "This is my house." The words came out louder than intended. "My table, my family, and you're confused?" Madison snapped back, then immediately softened her tone. "You're confused and upset. Maybe you should lie down." "I'm not confused. I know exactly what's happening here. Do you—" Madison stood her performance shifting to concerned family member. "Then why did you try to put dish soap in the gravy? Why did you call Robert by 3 different names? Why did you ask your dead husband if he wanted coffee?" Murmurs rippled through the room. Even those who loved me looked uncertain. "She's been getting worse for months," Madison continued, now addressing the room. "Thomas and I have tried to protect her dignity, but it's becoming dangerous. Just yesterday, she left the stove on all night. Last week, she gave Jake's ex-wife $30,000, money she doesn't even remember authorizing." "That's not true," I protested, but my voice sounded shrill even to my own ears. "Mom," Thomas said, carefully playing his part, "maybe you should sit down." "Not there." I pointed at the exile seat. "That's not where I belong." Madison pulled papers from her pocket, the guardianship forms I'd seen. "I didn't want to do this today, but for Bobby's own safety." She spread them on the table. "Dr. Morrison agrees that temporary guardianship might be necessary, just until we can get her properly evaluated." Dr. Morrison, a name I didn't recognize, another of Madison's fabrications, or a real doctor she'd somehow convinced. Either way, the papers looked official, impressive, convincing. "No," I said, but the word came out weak. "It's for the best," Gloria chimed in. "Madison's only trying to help." "She's stealing from me." The accusation burst out before I could stop it. "She's poisoning me, she's—" "Bobby, stop." Madison's voice was gentle but firm. "These paranoid delusions are exactly what Dr. Morrison warned about. You think everyone's out to get you. You've accused the mailman, the bank teller, even poor Ruth of conspiracies." Ruth opened her mouth to protest, but I caught her eye. "Not yet. Not yet." "Please," I said, letting tears come. They were real. Tears of rage, not confusion. "This is my home, my family. Don't take it away from me." "No one's taking anything," Madison said soothingly. "We just want to keep you safe. Robert's been helping us set up protections for your assets, making sure no one can take advantage of you in your condition." Robert nodded gravely. "Elder fraud is a serious problem. We've already stopped several attempts on Mrs. Henderson's accounts. Attempts they'd made themselves, no doubt." I swayed on my feet, genuinely this time. The stress, the performance, the sheer audacity of their crime was overwhelming. Strong hands caught me. Jake's. "Maybe you should sit down, Mom," he said quietly. "Any seat you want." I looked around the room at my family. Some watched with pity, others with discomfort, a few with suspicion. But Madison had played her hand perfectly. I looked like a confused old woman making a scene at Thanksgiving, paranoid and possibly dangerous. "Fine," I whispered. "I'll sit where you put me." The walk to that exile chair felt endless. Behind me, I heard Madison apologizing to everyone, heard the rustle of papers being passed around, heard the scratching of pens as family members signed their names to documents they didn't fully understand. I sank into the chair, gripping my apron, feeling every one of my 68 years. Madison had won this round, but the game wasn't over. Not even close. As dishes were passed and conversation resumed, I caught Thomas's eye. He nodded slightly, the signal I'd been waiting for. Phase 1 was complete. Madison had shown her hand, publicly gotten her witnesses, probably even gotten some signatures on those papers. She thought she'd won. Time for Phase 2. As Madison carved the turkey in my place, usurping yet another tradition, I sat at my exile seat, watching everything unfold like a chess match I'd already played in my mind. The room buzzed with uncomfortable conversation, family members trying to pretend they hadn't just witnessed the hostile takeover of my life. Madison was in her element, playing the perfect hostess while shooting concerned glances my way. "Emma, honey, could you check on your grandmother? Make sure she's eating." My granddaughter dutifully came over, her performance flawless. "Grandma, you need to eat something." Her voice was gentle, but her eyes burned with suppressed fury. "I'm not hungry, dear," I said truthfully. My stomach churned with anticipation. Through the dining room window, I saw a car pull into the driveway, then another and another. Madison was too busy holding court to notice. "As I was saying," Madison continued to the assembled family, "we've consulted with several specialists. Early-stage dementia is manageable with the right care. There's a lovely facility in Scottsdale." The doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Emma jumped up before Madison could stop her. "Emma, we're in the middle of dinner," Madison called, but Emma was already gone. Voices in the foyer. Multiple voices. Madison's first hint that something was off came when Thomas stood up, his phone in hand. "Sorry, everyone. I asked a few people to stop by. Didn't want to interrupt dinner, but this is important." "Thomas, what are you talking about?" Madison's voice sharpened. "This is family time." "Exactly," Thomas said as Detective Martinez entered the dining room, followed by 2 uniformed officers. "And it's time to find out who really belongs in this family." The room erupted. Chairs scraped, voices raised. Gloria shrieked something about police ruining Thanksgiving, but I kept my eyes on Madison, watching her face cycle through confusion, anger, and finally cold calculation. "Thomas, what is this?" She stood, the carving knife still in her hand. "Your mother is having an episode, and you bring police—" "Actually," Detective Martinez said, producing her badge, "we're here about elder abuse, fraud, and attempted murder. Mrs. Madison Henderson, we have some questions for you." "This is insane." Madison's mask slipped completely. "Thomas, your mother has dementia. She's been making wild accusations for months." "Has she—" A new voice from the doorway. Ellen Morrison walked in, very much alive despite Madison's ledger claiming otherwise. Behind her, Dorothy Price, supposedly lost to memory care, and Agnes Lindstrom's daughter carrying a box of documents. Madison went white. The knife clattered to the table. "Hello, Patricia," Ellen said coldly. "Surprised to see me? You should be. You told everyone I died in a nursing home after you stole my life savings." "Patricia, not Madison." The first crack in her carefully constructed identity. "I don't know what you're talking about," Madison stammered. "Thomas, baby, tell them—" "I already have," Thomas said, his voice steel. "I've been working with Detective Martinez for 3 weeks, ever since Mom showed me what you were doing to her. What I was doing, I was taking care of her. She's sick. With the poison you've been putting in her tea," I stood up, my voice clear and strong. "Yes, Patricia, I know all about the chlorpromazine. Small doses, just enough to mimic dementia. Very clever. You must have learned that from your last husband. How is Harold, by the way? The real Harold Morrison, not the actor you hired to play your father." Gloria, or whatever her real name was, tried to bolt for the door. The officers stopped her efficiently. "You knew." Madison's attention snapped to me. "You knew, and you let me—" "Perform." I walked toward her, past the shocked faces of my family. "Yes, I needed you to show everyone who you really are, and you did beautifully." Robert stood abruptly. "I don't know anything about this. Madison hired me as a financial consultant. I'm leaving." "Sit down, Mr. Stevenson," Detective Martinez ordered. "Or should I say Bradley Coombs? You're wanted in 3 states for elder fraud. We've been looking for you for 2 years." Jake's ex-wife Sarah tried to shrink into her chair, but I wasn't done with her. Sarah, would you like to explain to everyone why you suddenly decided Jake was an unfit father, or should I show them the bank records of the $30,000 Patricia paid you? Sarah burst into tears. She said Jake was hiding assets, said I deserved more child support I didn't know. You didn't know she was destroying our family for money. Jake's voice was deadly quiet. You took my children away for $30,000. She had proof documents showing you were drinking gambling. Forged documents. Detective Martinez interrupted. We have the originals from the bar Patricia claimed Mr. Henderson frequented. Their security footage shows he's never been there. The gambling receipts photoshopped. Even the witnesses who claimed to see him drunk at work, paid actors. Madison, Patricia laughed bitterly. You can't prove any of this. It's the word of a confused old woman against mine. Is it? I pulled out my phone, hitting play on a recording. Madison's voice filled the room. The old bitch is tougher than the others. Morrison went down in 6 months, but Henderson's got stamina. Doesn't matter. By Thanksgiving, I'll have her power of attorney. The house alone is worth $800,000. You recorded me. Her face contorted with rage. In your own home. My home, I corrected, which you'll never steal, just like you'll never steal from another elderly person again. Ruth stepped forward with a box. 3 years of evidence. Every document, every forged signature, every stolen penny. Bobby and I have been collecting it all. The tea bags with poison residue, Thomas added. The hidden cameras showing you doctoring her drinks. The ledger you thought was so cleverly hidden. We have everything. Agnes Lindstrom's daughter spoke up. My mother didn't die naturally. You increased her medication until her heart gave out. The coroner is reopening her case. And my mother's estate. Ellen Morrison's voice shook with fury. $400,000 vanished. But we found it, Patricia. In accounts under 12 different names, all traced back to you. Madison looked around wildly, seeking any ally. Her eyes landed on her parents. Tell them, she screamed at Gloria. Tell them this is a mistake. The woman posing as Gloria laughed bitterly. You said this would be easy money. One last score and we'd retire. I'm too old for prison, Patricia. Shut up, Madison screamed, then turned to Thomas. Baby, please, I love you. This is all a misunderstanding. Your mother's crazy, she's turned you against me. You tried to poison my mother, Thomas said quietly. You tried to steal her home, her dignity, her life. You used our daughter to spy on her. You destroyed my brother's family, and you think I'd protect you? Emma stepped forward, her young face hard with resolve. You made me think Grandma was sick, made me report on her, document her confusion. I helped you hurt her, and I'll never forgive myself. Oh, sweetheart, I pulled her close. You were manipulated by a professional. The guilt is hers, not yours. Detective Martinez nodded to her officers. Patricia Henley Harold Morrison, Gloria Morrison, or whatever your real names are, you're under arrest for elder abuse fraud, attempted murder, and conspiracy. As the handcuffs clicked around Madison's wrist, she stared at me with pure hatred. You destroyed everything. No, dear, I said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just refused to be another victim. They led her out, still screaming about lawyers and mistakes, and how I'd regret this. Robert, Bradley, went quietly, already calculating his next move. The fake parents blamed each other all the way to the police cars. The dining room fell silent except for Sarah's sobbing. I'm so sorry, she gasped. Jake, I'm so sorry. She showed me evidence, said you were dangerous. I was trying to protect the kids. Jake's jaw worked with suppressed emotion. You believed a stranger over me. You took my children. She was convincing, Sarah wept. She had documents, witnesses. She had lies. Jake cut her off. And you had greed. $30,000, Sarah. That's what our family was worth to you. I touched Jake's arm. The children need their father. Don't let Patricia steal anything more from this family." He looked at me, then at his ex-wife. "We'll talk. With lawyers. Real ones. But if you ever try to keep my kids from me again—" "I won't," Sarah whispered. "I swear I won't." The next hour passed in a blur of statements, evidence collection, and shocked family members processing what they'd witnessed. The turkey sat forgotten, the carefully prepared meal growing cold. But nobody cared about food anymore. Ellen Morrison sat beside me, her hand covering mine. "Thank you. When she destroyed my family, I thought I'd never get justice." "How did you survive?" I asked. "My son figured it out just in time. We've been hunting her ever since. When Detective Martinez contacted me, said you were gathering evidence." She squeezed my hand. "You're brilliant, Bobby Henderson." "Just stubborn," I corrected. "And lucky. If Thomas hadn't noticed the missing money, if Jake hadn't mentioned Sarah's sudden hostility, if Ruth hadn't seen Madison with Bradley—" "That wasn't luck," Thomas interrupted, sitting on my other side. "That was family looking out for each other. That was you raising us to pay attention, to protect what matters." One by one, family members approached. Apologies, tears, anger at being fooled, admiration for the courage it took to let Madison believe she was winning. Some admitted they'd started to believe her lies about my mental state. Others confessed they'd signed the guardianship papers thinking they were helping. "We'll testify," my cousin Jennifer promised. "Whatever you need to put her away." "The papers you signed were fake anyway," Detective Martinez informed the room. "The real Dr. Morrison doesn't exist. The documents were fraudulent. Legally, nothing happened here today except criminals revealing themselves." As evening fell and the house emptied of police and witnesses, my real family remained. Thomas, Emma, Jake, Ruth, and even Sarah, who sat apart but was no longer excluded. The Thanksgiving dinner was ruined, but we ordered Chinese food and ate it on paper plates, exhausted but together. "How long will she go to prison?" Emma asked. "With all the charges across multiple states, 25 to life, probably," Thomas said. "Longer if they prove Agnes Lindstrom's death was murder." "Good," Emma said fiercely, then softer. "Grandma, how did you stay so strong? Pretending to be weak, letting her hurt you?" I considered the question. Every time she gave me that poison tea, every time she moved something to confuse me, every time she whispered to others that I was losing my mind, I thought of all the women she'd done this to before. Women who didn't have a Ruth to notice oddities, or a Thomas to investigate, or a Jake whose situation revealed her connections. I stayed strong for them. "But it must have been terrifying," Sarah said quietly, "knowing someone in your own family wanted to destroy you." "She was never family," I said firmly. "Family doesn't require blood or even marriage certificates. It requires love, trust, and protection. Madison had none of those things. She was just a parasite who chose the wrong host." We talked until midnight, processing the trauma, planning the future. Jake and Sarah would enter counseling, try to repair what Madison had broken. Thomas would file for divorce immediately. Emma would start therapy to deal with her guilt over helping Madison. And me, I had my life back. My mind clear, my family aware, my future secure. As Thomas helped me clear the takeout containers, he paused. "Mom, I have to ask. When did you first suspect?" "The tea," I admitted. "It tasted wrong from the beginning. But the real moment was when she suggested power of attorney out of nowhere right after Jake mentioned needing money. Too convenient, too eager. 3 weeks of letting her poison you. Weren't you scared?" "Terrified," I admitted. "But anger is stronger than fear. And I was furious. Not just for me, but for every elderly person who's seen as weak, disposable, and easy mark. We're not victims waiting to happen. We're survivors who've weathered more than these criminals can imagine." Thomas hugged me tight. "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I brought her into our lives." You brought love into your life, I corrected. It turned out to be a lie, but your heart was true. Don't let her steal your ability to trust. After everyone left, I stood in my dining room with my chair at the head of the table where it belonged. Tomorrow I'd pack away Madison's things, change the locks, reclaim every space she'd tried to colonize. But tonight, I simply stood there 68 years old and victorious, having played the greatest performance of my life to save everything I'd built. Madison thought age made me weak. Instead, it had given me patience, wisdom, and the kind of strength that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth. I was Bobby Henderson, mother, grandmother, friend, and survivor, and I was just getting started. The Friday after Thanksgiving dawned gray and quiet. I woke in my own bed, having taken no tea, no pills, no poison, just sweet, natural sleep. For the first time in months, my mind was crystal clear from the moment I opened my eyes. Detective Martinez arrived at 9 with a team of investigators. What followed was a systematic dissection of Madison's, Patricia's life in my home. Every drawer, every hidden space, every digital footprint was examined. Mrs. Henderson, Detective Martinez called from the guest room Madison had used as an office. You need to see this. I joined her to find a treasure trove of evidence Madison had foolishly kept. Multiple passports with different names, bank statements for accounts I'd never heard of, and most damning, a journal detailing her methods. She documented everything, the detective said with amazement, like she was proud of it. I read entries with growing horror and rage. Day 47. B. Taking tea regularly. Confusion episodes increasing. T noticed nothing. Too easy to manipulate with sex and tears. Day 92. Convinced E to monitor grandmother. Child suspects nothing. B's friend R getting suspicious. May need to isolate. Day 156. S agreed to custody plan. J completely broken. Family dynamics perfect for final phase. Each entry was a violation clinical in its cruelty, but they'd also be her downfall. This is a confession, Detective Martinez said. Written proof of premeditation. Thomas arrived with our family lawyer, Richard Brennan, who'd known me for 30 years. His face was grim as he reviewed everything. Bobby, the scope of this. She didn't just try to steal from you. She created an entire framework to destroy you legally, financially, and emotionally. I know, I said quietly, but she failed. Because you fought back. Most of her victims didn't have that chance. Ellen Morrison and Dorothy Price arrived together, brought by the FBI agents now involved in what had become a multi-state investigation. We sat in my living room, my reclaimed space, sharing stories that revealed Patricia's pattern. She started small with me, Ellen explained, befriending me at church, offering to help with errands. My children lived far away, and she seemed so kind. Within a year, she'd convinced everyone I was developing Alzheimer's. Even I started to believe it. Dorothy nodded. Same pattern. Isolation, medication, gaslighting. By the time my son realized something was wrong, she'd already transferred my house deed and emptied my accounts. How many others, I asked, though I dreaded the answer. We've identified 17 victims so far, an FBI agent named Coleman answered. Across 6 states over 15 years, total theft exceeds $12 million. $12 million stolen from elderly people who'd worked their whole lives, saved carefully only to have it ripped away by someone they trusted. The couple posing as her parents. They're actually Harold and Gloria Vance, con artists with their own long history. They specialized in romance scams before partnering with Patricia, Agent Coleman continued. And Bradley Coombs, the fake financial advisor, has done this in 3 other states under different names. Jake arrived with his lawyer and a court order. The emergency custody ruling had been vacated that morning based on evidence of fraud. His children would be home by evening. Sarah's cooperating fully, his lawyer explained. She's provided bank records, text messages, everything showing how Patricia manipulated her. The family court judge is not pleased about being deceived. "Where is Sarah?" I asked. "Outside," Jake said. "Too ashamed to come in." "Bring her in," I decided. She was a victim too, even if she made terrible choices. Sarah entered like a beaten dog, unable to meet anyone's eyes. When she finally looked up, her face was ravaged by guilt. "Bobby, I'm so sorry." She knew exactly what to say, exactly what buttons to push. "My own parents went through a terrible divorce, and she used that made me think Jake was just like my father." "Manipulation is her expertise," I said, not unkindly. "But you still chose money over trust." "I know. I'll regret it forever. But I want to make it right. I'll testify against her. I'll do whatever it takes to help send her to prison." Agent Coleman pulled out more files. "Mrs. Henderson, we need to discuss the murder allegations regarding Agnes Lindstrom." Agnes's daughter Maria leaned forward. "My mother was healthy, active. Then Patricia became her caregiver, and within 8 months, Mom was dead from heart failure." The coroner found elevated levels of digoxin in preserved tissue samples, Coleman explained. "It's a heart medication, but in high doses." "Murder," I finished. "She graduated from theft to murder." "We believe Agnes discovered the theft and threatened to expose her. Patricia couldn't allow that." The room fell silent, absorbing this. I thought of how close I'd come to being another Agnes, poisoned into silence, then death. Ruth arrived with boxes of additional evidence we'd collected. "I've been busy. Found 3 more victims through online elder abuse forums. Patricia used different names, but the pattern's identical." We spent hours building the case, each revelation worse than the last. Patricia had stolen more than money. She'd stolen dignity, family relationships, final years that should have been peaceful. She'd turned children against parents, isolated victims from support systems, left them believing they were burden rather than beloved. "Why elderly targets?" Emma asked during a break. She'd insisted on being part of the investigation, needing to understand how she'd been used. "Vulnerable population," Agent Coleman explained. "Often isolated, sometimes genuinely experiencing memory issues, less likely to be believed if they report abuse. And frankly, some people see the elderly as having had their time, making them easier to dismiss." "That's horrible," Emma said fiercely. "Grandma's not disposable? None of them were." "No, sweetheart," I agreed. "We're not disposable. We're the keepers of family history, wisdom, love. That's what Patricia tried to steal. Not just money, but meaning." Detective Martinez's phone rang. She stepped aside, then returned with a grim smile. "Patricia just fired her lawyer and requested to represent herself. She wants to make a statement." "Let me guess," Thomas said bitterly. "She's going to claim insanity, or that I abused her, or that Mom masterminded everything." "All of the above, probably," Martinez agreed. "But it won't work. The evidence is overwhelming." Richard Brennan had been quietly reviewing financial records. "Bobby, I have good news. Because the fraud was discovered before completion, most of your assets are recoverable. The bank transfers were flagged and frozen. The house deed transfer was never filed. You've lost some money to the small thefts, but the big items are safe." "What about the others?" I asked. "Ellen, Dorothy, the families of those who died." "Asset recovery is harder for older cases, but not impossible. Patricia kept meticulous records of where money went. We're tracing it all." "I want to help them," I decided. Whatever I recover beyond my needs, I want it to go toward helping Patricia's other victims. "Mom," Jake protested, "you don't have to." "Yes, I do. We survived this because we had each other. They survived alone if they survived at all. It's only right." The investigation continued through the weekend. Patricia's backstory emerged in pieces. childhood of poverty parents who ran small cons and early marriage to an elderly man who died suspiciously, leaving her enough money to reinvent herself. She'd been Patricia Henley Madison Coleman, Jennifer Ross, Susan Blake, and a dozen other names. But the most chilling discovery came from her computer. Thomas had managed to recover deleted files, including a spreadsheet titled Prospects. My name was there marked in progress, but below mine were 23 other names, addresses, estimated net worth, and notes like widowed, estranged from children, or early dementia, significant assets. She was planning more victims, Thomas said, his voice hollow. Mom was just the current project. Not anymore, I said firmly. We're going to contact every person on that list, warn them, protect them. That's law enforcement's job, Detective Martinez reminded me gently. And it's my job as a human being, I countered. These could have been me if I hadn't had all of you. I won't let her hunt them even from prison. The truth kept emerging over the following days. Patricia had placed elderly parents in substandard facilities that gave her kickbacks. She'd sold their medications online. She'd even taken out life insurance policies on some victims. She commodified aging, Ellen said during one of our gatherings, turned our years into her profit margins. But we also discovered stories of resistance. Dorothy had fought back, trying to warn others before being discredited. Agnes had hidden letters detailing her suspicions, found too late. Several victims had tried to report her but weren't believed. The system failed them, Agent Coleman admitted. Elder abuse is underreported and underprosecuted. Patricia knew that. Then we changed the system, I declared. This can't keep happening. By the end of the week, the full scope was clear. Patricia Henley faced 47 federal charges across 6 states. Murder, attempted murder, elder abuse fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. The list went on. Her accomplices faced their own lengthy charges. But more importantly, her victims had a voice. Families reunited over the truth. Estates would be recovered. Those she'd isolated found community with each other. During a quiet moment, Maria Lindstrom took my hand. My mother would have liked you. You did what she tried to do. Stopped Patricia. We all stopped her, I corrected. Every victim who survived to testify, every family member who questioned the story, every friend who noticed something wrong. It took all of us. The investigation would continue for months, but the core truth had emerged. Patricia Henley was a predator who'd mistaken age for weakness, finding instead that we elderly have strengths she never imagined. Patience, wisdom, and the fierce protectiveness of those who've lived long enough to know what truly matters. She'd tried to erase us, make us invisible, steal our voices along with our assets. Instead, we'd become an army of witnesses, our voices raised together in truth. And we were just beginning. 1 year later, almost to the day, I stood in my kitchen again, preparing for Thanksgiving. But everything had changed. The turkey was smaller this year, only 18 pounds, but the guest list was larger. 32 people had confirmed, not all family by blood, but family nonetheless. Grandma, where do you want the place cards? Emma asked, holding handmade cards she'd crafted with each guest's name in careful calligraphy. My granddaughter had thrown herself into therapy after Patricia's arrest, transforming guilt into purpose. She now volunteered at the senior center, teaching art to elderly residents and watching for signs of abuse. The dining room table is already set. These are for the addition in the living room, I directed, watching her work. Make sure Ellen sits where she can see everyone. She loves being in the middle of things. Thomas emerged from the basement carrying extra chairs. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, brutal but necessary. Patricia had tried everything from her jail cell, claiming abuse, demanding alimony, even suggesting Thomas had masterminded the whole scheme. The judge, having reviewed the evidence, had dismissed every claim and granted Thomas full custody of Emma. "Mom, Jake's here with the kids," he announced. My younger son entered with 6-year-old Molly and 8-year-old Ryan, both clutching covered dishes. Behind them, surprisingly, came Sarah. The custody battle had ended with joint custody and mandated family therapy. They weren't reconciling as a couple, but they were rebuilding as co-parents. "Mrs. Henderson," Sarah greeted quietly. She still couldn't quite meet my eyes. "I brought the green beans like you asked." "Thank you, Sarah. And it's Bobby, remember, we're past formality." The doorbell rang steadily as guests arrived. Ellen Morrison came with her son, both having relocated to be closer to the community of survivors we'd built. Dorothy Price arrived with her daughter, walking steadily, despite predictions she'd never recover from the cognitive damage Patricia's drugs had caused. Maria Lindstrom brought photos of her mother to add to our memorial table. Ruth and Paul arrived with news. "The legislation passed," Ruth announced triumphantly. "Arizona State Senate voted unanimously. Bobby's Law is official." Bobby's Law: enhanced protections for elderly citizens, mandatory investigation of financial irregularities, severe penalties for elder abuse. It had taken a year of advocacy testimony and persistence, but we'd done it. "Mom, that's incredible," Jake said, hugging me. "You're literally changing laws." "We're changing laws," I corrected. "Every person who testified, every family who shared their story. Change doesn't happen in isolation." Detective Martinez arrived off duty, having become a friend through the long investigation. "Thought you'd want to know. Patricia's final appeal was denied yesterday. Life without parole served consecutively across 3 states. She'll die in prison." A cheer went up from several guests, though I felt no joy in it. Just relief and a sense of justice finally served. "What about the others?" Ellen asked. "Harold Vance, 30 years. Gloria Vance, 25 years. Bradley Coombs, 40 years across multiple states. The network is completely dismantled." More guests arrived. The prosecutor who'd tried Patricia's case, the FBI agents who'd traced the money, social workers who'd connected victims with resources, journalists who'd brought national attention to elder fraud. My dining room and living room filled with voices, laughter, and the kind of warmth Patricia had tried to steal. "Before we eat," I announced, standing at the head of my table, my rightful place, "I want to share something. Patricia tried to use a gratitude jar as manipulation last year, but genuine gratitude, real thankfulness can't be poisoned. So I'd like each of us to share what we're truly grateful for." Ellen started. "I'm grateful for Bobby Henderson, who showed us that age isn't weakness, it's power." Dorothy followed. "I'm grateful for my mind clear again, and for doctors who believed me when I said I'd been poisoned." One by one, voices rose. Gratitude for justice, for family reunited, for truth revealed, for strength discovered. When Sarah spoke, her voice broke. "I'm grateful for forgiveness I don't deserve, and for the chance to show my children that people can learn from terrible mistakes." Jake reached over and squeezed her hand. Not reconciliation, but acknowledgement of shared humanity. Emma stood last, poised and articulate. "I'm grateful my grandmother taught me that real strength isn't about never falling for lies. It's about what you do with the truth once you find it." We ate together, all 32 of us, the dining room extended into the living room, voices, overlapping stories shared. The food was simpler than previous years. Everyone had contributed something potluck style, but it tasted like victory. "Next week I start speaking at the university," I announced during dessert. "Their criminal justice program wants first-hand accounts of elder fraud." "And I'm starting a support group," Ellen added, "for families recovering from elder abuse. Maria's helping coordinate." "The documentary crew wants to interview more of us," Dorothy mentioned. "They're calling it The Invisible Crime. Should air next year." We were turning pain into purpose, victimhood into advocacy. Patricia had targeted us because she thought we were ending. Instead, we were beginning new chapters. As evening fell, I found myself in the kitchen with Thomas and Emma washing dishes in companionable silence. Through the window, I could see Jake and his children playing in the yard where Patricia had once calculated our worth in dollars. "Do you ever regret not seeing through her sooner?" Thomas asked quietly. "Every day," I admitted. "But regret is just wisdom arriving too late. What matters is what we do with that wisdom." "You saved us all," Emma said. "If you hadn't been strong enough to play along to gather evidence." Strength isn't just in the big moments, sweetheart. It's in choosing to trust again after betrayal, in building community from shared pain, in refusing to let one person's evil define your capacity for good. The party continued until late, no one eager to leave the warmth of shared survival. As the last guest departed, Ellen hugged me tight. "Same time next year?" she asked. "Wouldn't miss it. My table, my rules, my family, chosen and given." After everyone left, I stood alone in my reclaimed home. Pictures lined the mantel, not just of blood family, but of all those Patricia had tried to erase. We were visible now, voices raised, stories told. In the guest room that had been Madison's office boxes waited for donation. Her clothes, her belongings, every trace of her presence being removed. But in their place, I'd created something new. A resource center with information about elder abuse legal contact support groups. The room that had been headquarters for destruction now served protection. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Thank you for showing me that age makes you stronger, not weaker. Love you, Grandma." I smiled, thinking of all Patricia had tried to steal and all she'd failed to understand. She'd seen my 68 years as decline, as vulnerability ripe for exploitation. But those years had given me instincts she couldn't fool, forever connections she couldn't sever, and strength she couldn't break. Age hadn't made me weak. It had made me patient enough to wait, wise enough to plan, and connected enough to build the network that brought her down. Every gray hair was earned through experience. Every line on my face mapped a lesson learned. Every year lived was a weapon she couldn't wield against me. I thought of Patricia in her cell, surrounded by concrete instead of family counting days that led nowhere. She'd wanted my life, my assets, my very identity. Instead, she'd lost her own becoming inmate number rather than beloved family member. There's a special kind of justice in that, the predator becoming prey to their own isolation. But mostly, I thought of tomorrow, of Emma's art exhibition at the senior center, of the legislative session where 3 more states would consider versions of Bobby's law, of the survivors group meeting where new voices would find strength in shared story. Patricia had tried to write our ending. Instead, she'd given us a new beginning. And at 69 now, I was just getting started. The next morning brought unexpected joy. The phone rang early. Maria Lindstrom, her voice bright with tears. "Bobby, you won't believe this. The insurance company Patricia took out on Mom, they're ruling it fraud. The payout she never collected is going to Mom's favorite charity, the literacy program for immigrant seniors. Mom would be so happy." Even in death, Agnes had won. Her story, told in courtrooms and documentaries, had changed laws and saved lives. Patricia had stolen her years, but not her legacy. That afternoon, I met with my publisher. What had started as therapeutic journaling during the investigation had become something more, a book about recognizing and surviving elder abuse. The title, she asked. "Not Invisible, a Survivor's Guide to Elder Fraud," I replied, "with proceeds going to victim support services." She smiled. "Patricia Henley made one mistake above all others." "What's that?" "She underestimated you. She saw age and assumed frailty. She never realized that surviving decades of life creates warriors, not victims." That evening, I called each of my grandchildren. Not just Emma, but Jake's kids too, their voices bright over the phone. We talked about school, about dreams, about the funny things their pets did. Normal, beautiful conversations Patricia had nearly stolen. "Grandma," Ryan asked, "will you teach me to cook turkey next year?" "Of course, sweetheart. It's time to pass on the traditions." Traditions. Patricia had tried to steal those too, to rewrite our family story with herself at the center. But traditions aren't just actions, they're love-made tangible connections across generations. They survive because they're rooted in something deeper than one person's greed. As night fell on this new Thanksgiving weekend, I felt profound gratitude. Not despite what had happened, but because of how we'd responded. We'd turned attempted destruction into construction building laws and support systems and communities that would protect others. Patricia had entered my life as a thief in the night. She'd left it as a catalyst for change, though not the change she'd intended. Her legacy would be the protections built against others like her, the voices raised in warning, the eyes open to signs of abuse. My legacy would be simpler and stronger, a family that survived, a community that thrived, and the proof that age isn't decline, but refinement. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more survivors needing help, more laws needing passage, more stories needing to be told. But tonight in my kitchen, where it all began and ended, I was simply Bobby Henderson, mother, grandmother, survivor, advocate, 69 years old and grateful for every hard-won day. Patricia had been wrong about so many things, but most of all, she'd been wrong about this. We elderly aren't preparing for endings. We're always beginning something new. Looking back now, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever noticed signs that an elderly person in your life might be experiencing abuse, financial, emotional, or physical? Sometimes the red flags are subtle, like sudden changes in banking, new helpful friends who seem too involved, or personality changes that don't quite fit. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think of someone who might be vulnerable, please don't wait. Reach out, ask questions, stay involved. Because every Patricia starts with isolation, and every rescue begins with someone who cares enough to notice. If you found value in this story, please consider sharing it with others who might need to hear it. Like and subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. And please leave a comment sharing your own experiences or thoughts about protecting our elderly loved ones. Your story might be the one that helps another family avoid what we went through. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, age isn't weakness. It's wisdom, strength, and the power of accumulated love. May your own Thanksgivings be filled with genuine gratitude, real family, and the kind of joy that no one can steal. Stay vigilant, stay connected, and most of all, stay strong. With love and determination, Bobby Henderson,